Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in Genesis chapter 42, verse 18, through chapter 43, verse 34. After Joseph imprisons his brothers, on the third day, Joseph said to them, "Do as I say, and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, leave one of your brothers confined here in prison, while the rest of you go and take grain back for your hungry families. But you must bring your youngest brother to me. Then your words will be verified, and you will not die." They did as he said. They said to one another, "Surely we're being punished because of our brother, because we saw how distressed he was when he cried out to us for mercy. But we refused to listen. That is why this distress has come on us." Reuben said to them, "Didn't I say to you, don't sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen, so now we must pay for shedding his blood." Now they did not know that Joseph could understand them, for he was speaking through an interpreter. He turned away from them and wept. When he turned around and spoke to them again, he had Simeon taken from them and tied up before their eyes. Then Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, to return each man's money to his sack, and to give them provisions for the journey. His orders were carried out. So they loaded their grain on their donkeys and left. When one of them opened his sack to get feed for his donkey at their resting place, he saw his money in the mouth of his sack. He said to his brothers, "My money was returned. Here it is in my sack." They were dismayed. They turned trembling one to another and said, "What in the world has God done to us?" They returned to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan and told him all the things that had happened to them, saying, "The man, the lord of the land, spoke harshly to us and treated us as if we were spying on the land. But we said to him, 'We are honest men. We are not spies. We are from a family of 12 brothers. We are the sons of one father. One is no longer alive, and the youngest is with our father at this time in the land of Canaan.' Then the man, the lord of the land, said to us, 'This is how I will find out if you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me, and take grain for your hungry households, and go. But bring your youngest brother back to me, so I will know that you are honest men and not spies. Then I will give your brother back to you, and you may move about freely in the land.' When they were emptying their sacks, there was each man's bag of money in his sack. When they and their father saw the bags of money, they were afraid. Their father Jacob said to them, 'You are making me childless. Joseph is gone, Simeon is gone, and now you want to take Benjamin? Everything is against me.' Then Reuben said to his father, 'You may put my 2 sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my care, and I will bring him back to you.' But Jacob replied, 'My son will not go down there with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. If an accident happens to him on the journey you have to make, then you will bring down my gray hair in sorrow to the grave.' Now, the famine was severe in the land. When they finished eating the grain they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, 'Return, buy us a little more food.' But Judah said to him, 'The man solemnly warned us, you will not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you send our brother with us, we'll go down and buy food for you. But if you will not send him, we won't go down there, because the man said to us, you will not see my face unless your brother is with you.' Israel said, 'Why did you bring this trouble on me by telling the man you had one more brother?' They replied, 'The man questioned us thoroughly about ourselves and our family, saying, "Is your father still alive? Do you have another brother?" So we answered him in this way. How could we possibly know that he would say, "Bring your brother down"?' Then Judah said to his father Israel, 'Send the boy with me, and we will go immediately. Then we will live and not die, we and you and our little ones. I myself pledge security for him. You may hold me liable if I do not bring him back to you and place him here before you. I will bear the blame before you all my life. But if we had not delayed, we could have traveled there and back twice by now.' Then their father Israel said to them, 'If it must be so, then do this. Take some of the best products of the land in your bags, and take a gift down to the man, a little balm, a little honey, spices and myrrh, pistachios and almonds. Take double the money with you. You must take back the money that was returned in the mouths of your sacks. Perhaps it was an oversight. Take your brother too, and go right away to the man. May the sovereign God grant you mercy before the man, so that he may release your other brother and Benjamin. As for me, if I lose my children, I lose them.' So the men took these gifts, and they took double the money with them, along with Benjamin. Then they hurried down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the servant who was over his household, "Bring the men to the house, slaughter an animal and prepare it, for the men will eat with me at noon." The man did just as Joseph said. He brought the men into Joseph's house. But the men were afraid when they were brought to Joseph's house. They said, "We are being brought in because of the money that was returned in our sacks last time. He wants to capture us, make us slaves, and take our donkeys." So they approached the man who was in charge of Joseph's household and spoke to him at the entrance to the house. They said, "My lord, we did indeed come down the first time to buy food, but when we came to the place where we spent the night, we opened our sacks, and each of us found his money, the full amount, in the mouth of his sack. So we have returned it. We have brought additional money with us to buy food. We do not know who put the money in our sacks." "Everything is fine," the man in charge of Joseph's household told them. "Don't be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money." Then he brought Simeon out to them. The servant in charge brought the men into Joseph's house. He gave them water, and they washed their feet. Then he gave food to their donkeys. They got their gifts ready for Joseph's arrival at noon, for they had heard that they were to have a meal there. When Joseph came home, they presented him with the gifts they had brought inside, and they bowed down to the ground before him. He asked them how they were doing. Then he said, "Is your aging father well, the one you spoke about? Is he still alive?" "Your servant, our father, is well," they replied. "He is still alive." They bowed down in humility. When Joseph looked up and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, he said, "Is this your youngest brother, whom you told me about?" Then he said, "May God be gracious to you, my son." Joseph hurried out, for he was overcome by affection for his brother, and was at the point of tears. So he went to his room and wept there. Then he washed his face and came out. With composure he said, "Set out the food." They set a place for him, a separate place for his brothers, and another for the Egyptians who were eating with him. The Egyptians are not able to eat with Hebrews, for the Egyptians think it is disgusting to do so. They sat before him, arranged by order of birth, beginning with the firstborn and ending with the youngest. The men looked at each other in astonishment. He gave them portions of the food set before him, but the portion for Benjamin was 5 times greater than the portions for any of the others. They drank with Joseph until they all became drunk. Yeah, pretty dramatic. Oh dear. I've forgotten how to use a computer here. One moment. So, you had Joseph's brothers sent to Egypt initially, and he captures them and throws them in the prison for 3 days, accusing them of being spies. And he sends them back, saying that he'll release them. Well, that they can only buy food from him again if they bring back their youngest brother with them, to prove that they're honest. And he also holds Simeon hostage during this time. And Jacob is none too enthused about this. In 42:36, "You are making me childless. Joseph is gone, Simeon is gone, and now you want to take Benjamin. Everything is against me." And then Reuben, it's just like, "You may put my 2 sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my care, and I will bring him back to you." Seems like such a worthless recompense for Jacob here, because those are his grandsons. And it's just like, you may put your 2 grandsons to death if your son doesn't return. Here, just seems like a stupid way to recompense Jacob. And In 42:38, "My son will not go down there with you," Jacob replied, "for his brother is dead, and he alone is left." So, they were all brothers, though only Joseph and Benjamin were the sons of his favored wife, Rebecca, I believe. So here Jacob is still showing favoritism for the sons of Rebecca. Let's see what Guzik has to say here. The brothers said, "We are truly guilty concerning our brother." Their guilty conscience told them this complicated mess was because of the way they treated Joseph before. This was a good sign. The quickness with which they associated these events with their sin against Joseph meant they often remembered that sin. There was not a completely logical connection between their current situation and their previous treatment of Joseph, but a guilty conscience sees every trouble as sin's penalty. The United States government has something called the Federal Conscience Fund, which collects money people send in because they know they cheated the government in some way. People have sent in money because they took army blankets for souvenirs, for cheating on postage or on income tax. But our consciences are notoriously weak or corrupt. One man wrote the IRS and said, "I cheated all my taxes and can't sleep at night. Here's a check for $100. If I still can't sleep, I'll send the rest I owe." A good step in the right direction, but not quite there, buddy. Therefore this distress has come upon us. In these words, we hear the conscience of the brothers at work. Some describe the conscience as the sundial of the soul. It tells time well enough when there is light, but in darkness it is of no use. At night you can shine a flashlight on a sundial and make it read any time you want to. When the sunlight of God's word shines on our conscience, it is reliable and trustworthy. Apart from that, it isn't always reliable. Otherwise, our conscience can be like a circus-trained poodle. Whistle once, it stands up. Whistle twice, it rolls over. Whistle a third time, and it plays dead. Joseph turned himself away from them and wept. Joseph was overcome with emotion as he saw and understood this work of God in the conscience of his brothers. God had to do a deep work in the hearts of these brothers for their relationship to be reconciled. There could be no quick and easy, "We're sorry, Joseph," in this situation. God guided events so the brothers saw their sin clearly and repented completely before Joseph was revealed and relationship was restored. Yet, even before the restoration, Joseph did not allow himself to be bound by bitterness and hatred. He still loved his brothers and wanted to be with them. He returned to them again and talked with them. He wasn't happy about their misery, but knew in some way it was necessary. He took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. In a vivid and memorable scene, Joseph bound Simeon and kept him as a prisoner to guarantee the return of the brothers with Benjamin. Simeon was not mentioned as having a prominent role in the selling of Joseph, as both Reuben and Judah were, so we don't know exactly why Simeon was chosen. Perhaps he volunteered. To restore every man's money to his sack. This was an unexpected and wonderful blessing. The grain had to be expensive, and Joseph put their money back in the sacks of grain appointed for each brother. Joseph did this for his brothers before they were reconciled to him. They had yet to repent or ask forgiveness, yet he loved them and cared for them. He gave to them, and they didn't even know it. In the same way, Jesus gives us unexpected, undeserved blessings. Some are obvious and upfront, and some are hidden to be discovered later. But he gives to us even before we were reconciled to him. Yeah. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. He saw his money, and there it was in the mouth of his sack. This was a test, not from Joseph, but from God. What would they do with the money? What would be revealed about their heart? The deceptive heart would hide it. The lying heart would make up a story about it. The proud heart would think it deserved it. The superficial heart would think nothing of it. We are tested by what Jesus gives to us, and Jesus tests the heart. What we do is important, but God goes deeper than the action itself and wants to develop not only our behavior, but also our character. Their hearts failed them and they were afraid. This was strange. It was as if they had just won the lottery, but they weren't happy at all. Instead, they were afraid. They were so afraid that their hearts failed them and they had to talk to each other about it. They were afraid because they were already suspected as spies. Now they could also be accused as thieves. They were also afraid because of their guilty consciences. A guilty conscience doesn't even know how to handle gifts from God. They told him all that had happened to them. When the brothers finally made it home, they told their father Jacob the truth. The last time they came back missing one of the brothers, they told a lie, making up a story about Joseph being attacked by a wild animal. They even had his bloody coat of many colors to give false evidence to their lie. The fact that they told the truth here was a small step, but a good step. We are honest men. They mostly told the truth. They could say, we are honest men in regard to their dealings with the mysterious Egyptian, the man who is the Lord of the land. But they were not honest men when they lied about Joseph's death 20 years before. They were lying about it. One is no more. Joseph knew they were not honest men. He didn't know the exact lie they told Jacob to explain Joseph's disappearance, but he knew they must have lied in some way. Joseph knew who they were, but he also knew what they could become. Joseph is no more. Simeon is no more. This tortured Jacob, yet these statements were not true. Not only was Joseph alive, but Jacob would see him soon, and Joseph would rescue their whole family. And Simeon was also alive. And you want to take Benjamin. Large in his mind was the fear he would lose more. Since he lost Joseph, Jacob lived to protect himself from further devastating loss. All these things are against me. This summarized Jacob's outlook on life. Everything was against him. He had no happiness in the present and no hope for the future. He woke up and went to bed thinking, all these things are against me. In all these things, there is a sobering contrast between Jacob and Joseph. Joseph had far worse circumstances, but he never took the attitude, all these things are against me. The motto of too many Christians is, all these things are against me. Instead, our motto should be Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. We note that Romans 8:28 says, God works all things together for good. Any one thing in isolation may not be good. God isn't saying that every individual thing is good, but that God can and will work everything together for the good of his people. Kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you." In a dramatic gesture, Reuben was willing to lay down his own sons to give assurance to Jacob in his despair. What Reuben did as a dramatic gesture, God did in fact. God gave his own son to deliver us and rescue us in our despair. Yeah. Now the famine was severe in the land. We have reason to believe the brothers went to Egypt for grain in the first year of the famine. Joseph knew it would last 7 years, but his brothers did not. They probably thought it was one bad year, but the second year of famine came quickly. Perhaps Jacob originally thought they had enough to survive the famine, and they would never need to go back with Benjamin, and never need to go back and get Simeon. The famine wore on, and eventually they ran out of food. "Go back, buy us a little food." Necessity drove Jacob to do something he would normally never do. We might imagine Jacob prayed so hard for the famine to break and asked God to send relief. We might imagine Jacob became angry and bitter against God for not answering those prayers. God had a plan and had something so much better for Jacob than he could ever imagine. Yeah. Send the lad with me. The reference to Benjamin as a lad makes us wonder how old he was at the time. Adam Clark and others think lad here is better translated as youth or young man, and that Benjamin was in his mid-20s or early 30s with a family of his own. Take some of the best fruits of the land in your vessels and carry down a present for the man. Once before, Jacob had given a generous gift to a potential enemy, and it worked well. That is, to Esau. Then they get invited into Joseph's house to eat with him. They talked with the servant at the door of the house. The brothers thought it was wise to explain things to the steward of Joseph's house before they had to explain it to the Egyptian official himself. They brought him the present and bowed down. They once again fulfilled the dream Joseph had many years before. They honored this Egyptian official not only out of respect, not only out of gratitude, but also out of need. Sensing we need Jesus will prompt us to give to him and worship toward him. Joseph did not eat with his brothers because at the time Egypt was one of the most racially separated societies on earth. They believed that Egyptians came from the gods and all other peoples came from lesser origins. There was little social mixing with foreigners in the Egypt of Joseph's day. The Egyptians would not eat with Joseph, much less the strangers from Canaan. Even with all his status and power, Joseph could still not eat with real Egyptians. It is known from Herodotus that Egyptians so abhorred things foreign that priests, at least, ate and drank nothing that was imported, nor would they use utensils for eating that had been used by Greeks. The firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. They were seated according to this. No wonder the brothers were filled with astonishment. The arrangement couldn't happen by chance. Statistically, the odds of placing 11 brothers in their precise order of birth are something like 1 in 40 million. Benjamin's serving was 5 times as much as any of theirs. This was another test, seeing how they reacted when the younger brother was favored, because they resented it so much when Joseph was favored by his father. Joseph wanted to see if there was a change in the heart of his brothers, or if they were the same men who threw him into a pit and were deaf to his cries for help. This might have been his whole motivation in asking for Benjamin. He wondered if they would take care of Benjamin on such a journey as they failed to do with Joseph. We should expect if we fail in a test somewhere, God will make arrangements for us to take the test again another time. This is a serious reason to take the test well the first time. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a great day.